Turner Winter Series. My name is Kristen McMahon, and I serve as the president of the Robert H. Jackson Center. And tonight I am standing in for the illustrious Maureen Raveno, who could not be with us. Also tonight, the tables are turned on our usual host, Greg Peterson, who will instead be our featured storyteller this evening. Greg Peterson is of counsel at Phillips Lytle, serving as the office leader of its Chautauqua office. His practice focuses on all areas of real estate, including development and financial transactions, areas of corporate counseling, including acquisitions, administration, and strategic planning, not-for-profit corporate formation, tax exemption, and qualification with New York State administrative areas. He graduated Phi Beta Kappa with a bachelor's from Allegheny College and a JD from the Dickinson School of Law of the Pennsylvania State University. Greg co-founded the Robert H. Jackson Center in 2001 as a nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing the remarkable legacy of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Robert H. Jackson. And as you all know, he is a consummate sportsman, storyteller, and recorder. And for some of you, this may be the first time you've seen Greg in person without a camera up to his eye. Starting us off tonight is Mike Bellani. Since 1999, Mike has served as president and chief operating officer of Bellani Associates, specializing in communications, rainmaking, and publishing. Mike is deeply connected to the Western New York community as a longtime Rotary Club member, a Recovery Operations Made Easy and Boss Because Foundation board member, and a volunteer at several organizations and churches, including St. Luke's Mission of Mercy in East Buffalo. Mike is a graduate of the State University of New York at Morrisville with a degree in journalism and spent 12 years in the newspaper business as an award-winning sports reporter and editor for the Tonawanda News, Buffalo Courier Express, and the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. He currently practices his storytelling craft as a freelance writer for several publications, as well as an author and book publisher. Mike began his 13-year career with the Buffalo Bisons in 1983, working with the Rich family in developing and constructing a downtown ballpark and helping promote the team to the elevated status of the only franchise in minor league baseball history to sell more than 1 million tickets in 6 straight seasons. Most recently, Mike has served as the associate editor, writer, and publisher of the Seasons of Buffalo Baseball, 1857 to 2019. He's also written and published Robert E. Rich, Memoirs of an Innovator, the biography of the Rich Products Corporation, and he managed and published All In, the biography of local businessman Ronald Zeller, who helped keep the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo in the late 1990s. Mike, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much, Kristen. It's a pleasure to be back to my home away from home. And in that lengthy introduction, Kristen, you missed the most important aspect, the proudest part of my entire life, and that is the honor I have of being the president of the Greg Peterson Fan Club. Now, Greg and I go back to 1985. I was in the second year of the Buffalo Bisons. At the time, Bob Rich had bought the team in 1983. I was a sports writer, covered the story. He then made me his first hire. Bill Giesel, a former Phillips Lytle attorney, was the legal counsel of Rich Products, and he received a phone call in 1985 before our Old Timers game, commemorating the 100 seasons of Buffalo baseball. Bill gives me a call and he said, I need you to make a all-access press pass for a Greg Peterson. I said, great. What media outlet is he? Media. Okay. I show up that game and there's Greg Peterson, and it was love at first sight. He was a man after my own heart. He never knew what the word no meant, and he always found a way to interview the subjects that was there. And I sat down next to him in the dugout, and he was running with his camera and his questions, more in-depth interviews of these old-timers than any other media person there. So, Greg, it was a pleasure back then, and we just continued some great times since then. But I'll never forget, one of my other proudest moments was Niagara Falls had a mayor that Major League Baseball came up with these a list of requirements that all the minor league teams had to do to make their stadiums upgradable for the players. And at the time, we were trying to bring a major league team to Buffalo, and Bob Rich wanted to own our entire minor league system. We had a double-A team in Wichita, Kansas. We had a New York Penn League single-season A club in Niagara Falls, and then we had our AAA team that we would move somewhere when we became Major League. Well, the mayor of Niagara Falls at the time, when we went in and said that Major League Baseball had all these requirements, and I had with me then the president, you talk about going full circle, the president of the New York Penn League was Bob Julian at the time. And the mayor said, look, just because you're wearing suits, you can't push me around. We're not doing anything. I said, okay, great. As we're walking down the stairs, Jamestown had just lost your team, maybe a few minutes earlier. And I said, Greg, how would you like to fill that gap with another New York Penn League franchise? We want to move out of Niagara Falls. And we did a deal over the phone. They came down, and thus was born the Jammers. And now you have the Tarp Skunks, and it's just a pleasure to be here and seeing all the work that Greg and all of you that are part of Jamestown baseball has done. You know, Russ Dietrich and his wife are dear friends, and just seeing the loyalty of these people. I see Bruce and Julie Dungeon that have been here from the start of when we came and, you know, would house the kids, and, you know, Randy and Scott to have, you know, local media like you have here. I'm just very proud to be associated. You now have, you know, Kristen Dolce is your new Director of Business Operations, soon to be General Manager of the entire operation, but I'm proud because he comes from the area and he knows the team, and so I think the team is going to be in great hands going into this year. Before I call on Kristen, I just want to, we invited some other former GMs and associates of the team. Mike Ferguson was going to be there, and I ask you to keep him in your prayers. He's going through some medical issues, and he would have been here. But also from the Detroit Tigers, Dan Lanetta from Jamestown wanted to be here. And Greg, he sends a note. I deeply regret that I'm unable to be in attendance for this incredibly special evening. I can only imagine the wonderful stories that will be told tonight, and by the man who does them better than anyone I know. Our community is blessed beyond words to have someone like you who has put forth this labor of love. We've known each other now for over 45 years, and I have so enjoyed the journey of our friendship and the stories and the history you have enriched us all over the many years. I will always remember you when you walked into my office to see Duke Snyder, who was then working for the Expos, and having a conversation. It was a priceless moment I will never forget. And I can see those wheels turning as I have so many times. How can I get a sit down with Duke of Flatbush? The highlight of highlights, though, was having you, your dad Lyle, and daughter Amy come to South Florida for the 1997 World Series. I still enjoy watching that video and the thrill of those few days. It is only available video that makes that incredible special time so personal. All thanks to you. Thanks for creating the memories, and thanks for preserving history, as you have done so incredibly well. Your pal, Dan Lanetta, Detroit Tigers.
Very nice.
Gives me great pleasure to bring up the next in a long line of great general managers that have been here before for the Tarp Skunks in his first year, Christian Dolce. Christian?
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everyone. I appreciate all of you taking the time to come out tonight and enjoy a night filled with baseball stories of the past. But before we dive into the past, we're going to look a little bit into the future. 37 more days until the Jamestown Tarp Skunks open up their 2023 season on June 1st against the Olean Oilers. We are extremely excited for this season to begin and have loaded our schedule with a lot of great and interactive promotions that fans are going to absolutely love. Starting off on our June 1st home opener, we have a pregame tailgate that will be sponsored by Pepsi that is going to be featuring the band For the People, along with games and the Pepsi drink truck. So all this occurs before the game, and we would love to see you for our game that starts at 6:30 p.m. One of our biggest days of the season will come shortly thereafter, as on Wednesday, June 7th, we have our annual School Kids game, which this year will be presented by the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation. We will host 2,200 students from Jamestown Public Schools, Falconer, Randolph, and Sherman, all for free. So this game is absolutely sold out. We are going to pack the stadium, and we are going to root for our home team, the Jamestown Tarp Skunks. Without the Community Foundation, we would not be able to host this event, so thank you to them. And the applause should continue because, backed by popular demand, we have our $2 nights, which will be back in full force. So our $2 nights will be featuring pop, hot dogs, and beer for just $2 and will occur on every Wednesday. That excludes Wednesday, June 7th. Another Jamestown baseball staple will be our fireworks nights in 2023. We will have two of them. The first one will happen on Friday, June 30th, presented by Jamestown Mattress. And our second will be part of a Christmas in July celebration on July 23rd, and that'll be presented by Collaborative Children's Solutions. So thank you so much to them. And finally, we will be having 3 buyout nights this year that are completely free to the public. Thursday, June 15th will be a buyout night presented by Jamestown Community College. Thursday, June 29th at 6:30 p.m. will be a buyout night sponsored by the Chautauqua County Industrial Development Agency. And the Greater Chautauqua Federal Credit Union will be sponsoring a Sunday, July 9th community buyout that will begin at 2 p.m. So thank you to those 3 organizations for offering such a great opportunity for our fans and for our local area. And to introduce some new things, a few new wrinkles will be added and will be coming this season for the Tarp Skunks. Right now is the official announcement of our Tarp Skunks Kids Club, the Little Stinkers, which is presented by Pepsi and Collaborative Children's Solutions. Perks of this membership are a mid-season ice cream social with Whiffy and some select players, 10% off at the team store, a free t-shirt, and a free ticket to Friday night home games. And in addition to this Tarp Skunks Kids Club, fans can also have the opportunity to run the bases for free after every weekend game, excluding our July 23rd firework game. My goal here is to attract families and allow our local area to have fun and an interactive time at the ballpark. As we get closer to the season, you're going to hear the words, and you're going to see it on social media and in the news. You'll see the words presented by or sponsored by, and that just goes to show the effort and commitment that our local businesses and organizations in this community have for our team. So thank you so much to all our sponsors and supporters this season. As I wrap up here, I just want you to remember 37 more days. 37 more days until we are done waiting for Tarp Skunks baseball. So at the end of this program here, after Greg mesmerizes you with his wonderful talent, we will be selling merchandise, season tickets, kids club memberships, and we will also have our schedule cards out there. So I encourage you to purchase all or some of it. So thank you very much, and we'll throw it over to Greg.
Wow, this is quite the turnout, and I'm thrilled. This is the last event of our ongoing Turner Winter Series, and it was really Mike Bellani. Mike Bellani for the last 3 years has been on my heels, nonstop. About Greg, you've interviewed so many people. You've shown a lot of it on YouTube. Why don't you show your best of the best and just have an event? No. It's work. It's out there. People can see it if they want to. And he kept bugging me, and so I thought, the final event of our Turner Winter Series, I didn't have anybody else to speak, so all right, it'll be me. It'll be me, and so I've edited an awful lot of stuff which I think you'll find interesting, but it's been Mike, and it really was Mike, just by way of background, that got me really into this whole not only storytelling, but stealing stories from other people, because everybody has a story. Everybody in this crowd here, everybody that's on TV, watching on YouTube, they have stories. And it was this book put out by David Muley, which when we came down, talking a little bit about the Niagara Falls Rapids, coming here, he came in 1994 and said, hey, what you got is such a rich, pun intended, I think, rich history, and so you need to capture it. So Russ Dietrich, many people here, I see Durward Swanson, we went out and interviewed, did microfilming, did an awful lot to turn this into a book authored by Dave Muley, which was sold out in one night. And then we did an update when the Tarp Skunks became the Tarp Skunks. And Scott Kimberg, who's right over there, gave us color using Jim Riggs's work, his own work, and brought it up to date. And this is what also available outside if you want. And there are not many of these left. But it's really, this was the reason to do a lot of these stories. And so what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to try to lead into the stories. I'm not going to be necessarily the storyteller. I'll get the backstory, and then you'll let the various celebrities, and there have been a lot of them, who float through Jamestown. I know you've been to the ballpark, but sometimes you never know who's in the stands, who was the coach, who was the manager, and their story. So we're going to try to capture some of that tonight. So without further ado, what I want to start with is something that has nothing to do with baseball in a truest sense. In 2011, the Robert H. Jackson Center hosted a continuing legal education called Woodstock and the First Amendment. And the place was packed because we had various people who were related and stories concerning Woodstock. But we had everybody in the tie-dye shirts. The Resource Center provided tie-dye shirts for everybody, and as a result, everybody wore them, all 180 people here. I had them all stand at the beginning of this event because I thought it was appropriate to bring Woodstock, the Resource Center, and use a song which we hear every day before we go to the game. So this was the beginning of our first event in 2011.
Everybody to rise, because it's important that at an event like today we do recognize and have the national anthem played. And to think Todd Tranum wanted to do that.
The next one, I just want to pause because I think it's important. Recently, Mark Russell, who has been near and dear to Western New York and near and dear to the country as a comedian, has become a friend of the Robert Jackson Center, also a friend of the Tarp Skunks, and an investor of the Tarp Skunks, and passed away. Mark passed away, and I just want to have a moment of silence. It'll be a brief silence, and then we'll share something that Mark shared with the world with regards to the baseball. So we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Ed, if we could show the next piece, which Mark made up and showed it on his national coverage.
Take me out to the Tarp Skunk. Take me out with the crowd. A skunk's in the dugout, I ain't gonna snow ya. They even smelled it in downtown Fredonia. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. We are the team with a stripe down our back for Richmond. Root for the Tarp Skunk. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's Tarp Skunks, we're proud of our team with a stinking good name. For it's Tarp Skunks, we're proud of our team with the stinking good name.
Our MC tonight is Michael Bellani. Michael Bellani, I talked a little bit about him, and he is the P.T. Barnum, as we all know, of Buffalo baseball. The fact that the number of years that they had 1 million, think about that, 1 million fans in Buffalo Stadium, which seats 18,000 as a capacity for 5-6 years in a row, was unbelievable, unbelievable, unprecedented in baseball. And Mike, at one point, shortly after we got together in 1995, so this was right after the Jammers became real, in conjunction with Bob Rich Jr. and probably Bill Giesel, said, let's go down to Washington, Mike Bellani. You should go down there because you're going to lobby against, there was an antitrust legislation going on against minor leagues. And so Mike asked me if I would tag along as his bag boy. Now, we're going to show a clip right now, Ed, and then I'll finish it with a postscript.
Katie Casey was baseball man. She had the fever and she had it bad. Just to root for the hometown crew. Every cent that Katie spent. On one Saturday, her
He
young
forgot to bring
boy
socks to the Capitol.
called to see if she'd like to go to see a show, but Miss Kate said no.
The bag comes in candy later.
You can do. Take me out to the ball
I'm Julian.
game. Take me out with the crowd.
Currently the president of the
Buy
Perfect
me
Game
some
Collegiate League.
peanuts and Cracker Jacks.
Senator D'Amato's
I
office.
don't care if I ever get back, 'cause it's root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame, 'cause it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're
There you go,
out
Hope.
at the old ball game. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I do not care if I ever get back, 'cause it's root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame, 'cause it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Take me out to the ball game.
So here's the postscript. Mike pulled together all of the presidents, all of the owners of the New York Penn League, because we were going to meet all of the legislators. That bag that Mike was carrying, he gave it to me. I was his bag man. So we'd go to every congressman, every senator, and I'd have within the bag either a Jammers, as you saw, shirt, or a Bison shirt, and we gave it to him. That's Mike, just barges in and says, hi, I'm here, you should get to know me. And so then he had convened all of the presidents to go and see Senator D'Amato. And one of the great power moves I've ever seen, we get there, everybody's outside Senator D'Amato's. You can't get there now if you wanted to, that inside the Russell building. But he knocks on the door, he walks in, he goes, hi, I'm Mike Bellani, I'm here on behalf of the New York Penn League contingent, I'm here to see Senator D'Amato. And they come right out and say, well, he's unavailable, and the staff member will see him. He goes, that's unacceptable. So he then comes back out into the hall, picks up his cell phone, and he calls. And he goes, hey, Tony, I'm down here with all of New York State, and I'm outside Senator D'Amato's office, and he says he doesn't have time to see me. Can you help me? Okay, thank you very much. 5 minutes later, the door opens, and there's Senator D'Amato. Now, who did Mike Bellani call but Anthony Gioia? Anthony Gioia, who very powerful in the Republican Party in Buffalo. Obviously, Gioia made a call. Next thing you know, somehow Senator D'Amato's cleared up, and we all got to meet Senator D'Amato, as you saw on TV. That's my guy, Mike Bellani. The next one is perhaps one of my favorite segments. In 2007, the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame always has their annual induction banquet, and for years they invited special guests to be the speaker. In 2007, they invited Goose Gossage. Now, Goose Gossage, as we all know, New York Yankees relief pitcher, enough said on the bio, but we brought him to my office at Phillips Lytle, and we also showed him a couple of clips of note, and I thought, I took the liberty of about a 5-minute piece here you're going to see on two of the most amazing pieces of baseball history of which Goose Gossage is a part. So with that, and Scott Kinberg was right there. You'll hear Scott's laugh in the background and comments. So.
Top the one of Goose Gossage, courtesy of George Brett, as the Yankees took on the Royals during a steamy late July matchup. With the ever-crafty Yankee manager Billy Martin looking on and the Royals down by a run, Brett blasted one into the right field seats, giving Kansas City a 5-4 ninth-inning lead. But Brett had no sooner reached home plate when Martin protested the amount of pine tar on Brett's bat. After all due deliberation, the umpires upheld Martin's complaint, nullifying Brett's home run and sending the Royals' third baseman into a rage. In the ensuing days, after protests and litigation, League President Lee McPhail overruled the umpires, and the pine tar incident later resulted in a 5-4 Kansas City win.
Well, it happened in Kansas City. Everybody thinks it was Billy Martin that spotted the pine tar. Well, it wasn't Billy. It was Greg Nettles. Munson had been called out on it 2 or 3 years before that, and so he knew about the rule. And when Brett came up in Kansas City with the game on the line, there was a runner at second base, and I remember Greg calling timeout and coming over, and he said, "Hey," he said, "if he gets a hit here, we're going to get his bat because he's using an illegal bat." I went, "Okay, great." So I got him out, no harm, no foul. We didn't say anything. So we leave Kansas City. They come into our place at the stadium, and here's Brett again, and I should have been in the game probably 2 or 3 hitters before that. Well, Billy was notorious for not being able to handle pitching and didn't know pitching from, he knew it was hard to hit. That was about it. And, I'm standing on the mound, and UL Washington beats out a chopper over my head. And he beats out a chopper over my head. Now I got to face Brett, and Brett's the last guy in that situation anybody wants to face, So I thought, there's no way that Brett is going to beat me. Well, when he came up, Nettles comes over again. He goes, "Hey, remember," he says, "if he gets a hit here, we're getting his bat, man. He's using an illegal bat." I said, "Okay." So the first pitch, I'm thinking, I'm going to walk him. I'm not going to let him beat me. And so the first pitch was a high and away fastball. And high and away, way out of the strike zone, and he reaches out and he hits this ball down the left field line. It's got home run distance, and I'm thinking it's gone. Well, it slices foul, just misses the foul pole. God, I said, I can't believe it. Well, this next pitch, I'm thinking I'm coming in this time, and I don't care if this ball hits him in the neck. I'm coming in. So I throw it in, and he Tommy Hawks this ball. He was a great hitter, and hit this ball. It's right here. I said I wanted that ball to hit your neck. He said if I hadn't hit that ball, it would have been in my neck. And he just hit it way out front like this, and then hits it into the seats for the home run. And then the rest is history. And it's the maddest human being I've ever seen in my lifetime. And if he'd had a gun, I think we'd all been dead. Second inning of the ball game in Detroit. It was game 5, and so I just pop out in the dugout. I've been up in the clubhouse, kind of getting ready and ready to go down and get in the bullpen, and I come out and Gibson's up, and I just pop out into the dugout. Tim Lawler, left-handed pitcher, is standing there. He's probably my best friend on the team, and he said, "Hey, how'd Gibby do against you?" I said, "I own him." It just jumped out of my mouth, and I never said anything like, never even, if I had success against a guy, just, don't wake up a dead horse, or whatever, don't wake him up, and just leave it alone. And it just flew out of my mouth. I own him. Well, if I faced Gibson, and I did own him, and he'll even say it, if I faced him, and the statistics read something like this, if I faced him 50 times, I struck him out 49 times. Really, it's that crazy. It's that it's exactly that. And I think he made contact one time with the ball, and that was it. And so now, fast forward into the, ninth inning or eighth inning or whatever, eighth inning, I guess it was, bottom of the eighth, and Gibby, here comes Gibby, and Dick Williams is going 4. Put him on, like this from the dugout, and Terry Kennedy gives me 4 like that, and I'm going, no. I said, no, I don't want to walk him, I don't want to walk him. And Terry's looking over at Dick, and Dick's going like this, and I'm going, no. So all of a sudden, somebody called timeout. Kennedy or somebody, Dick, I think, called timeout.
In Game 5, the Bengals led by a run in the 8th as Kurt Gibson came up with runners on 2nd and 3rd to face a pitcher who didn't want to walk the bases full, Goose Gossage.
You want Dan Bill in on him?
No. He don't want to walk you. He don't want to walk you.
Fastball pitcher against fastball hitter in a classic confrontation.
And he said, well, he doesn't want to walk him. I said, no, I want to go after him. I said, let's go after him. He goes, okay, all right. He says, go after him. Next pitch, in the upper deck.
Kurt Gibson's devastating blast, his second home run of the game, staked the Tigers to an 8-4 victory, providing Detroit with a 4th world championship in the 84-year history of the franchise. A decisive finish to the year of the Tiger.
Shit. Should have walked him.
Priceless. The next one is a story which I ginned up a little bit on the media about the story of who's the only person to ever strike himself out. And it's a Ripley's, believe it or not, but we had a chance at the stadium, as we did with many people. The Dietrich Park hosted, of course, the New York Penn League for many years, and they had managers and coaches who were part of Major League Baseball, and sometimes not big names, but just names that have been kind of fairly significant. So I would interview them in between, batting practice and before the game started. And one of them was Neil Allen. Neil Allen, I was early on in my life a Pirates fan, then I became a Mets fan. And Neil Allen was the really star relief pitcher during a pretty bad time for the New York Mets, but he's forever in a piece of history. So, Ed, if we could show this piece dealing with Neil Allen, who was a pitching coach at the time.
One of the many benefits of attending baseball games at Dietrich Park is you never know who you're.
Neil Allen completed 3 outstanding seasons and was recognized as one of the league's top relievers.
Well, I was with the New York Mets, and I got traded to the St. Louis Cardinals, and at the time of the trade, there was a rain delay game against St. Louis that had to be continued. Well, I was the hitter. I had 2 strikes against me at that time. The trade was made, the rain delay came, and so the next time we faced the St. Louis Cardinals, it was a continuation game. Well, the guy that came up and hit for me, I believe the count was like 1-2, he struck out. So Neil Allen gets the credit for the strikeout, and so there I am. I struck myself out. So that's basically how the story kind of has. It's not a record I really care about having, but I got it.
But you got it. I heard you say earlier you're still waiting for that '86 ring, right?
Well, yeah. I keep asking Fred Wilpon and some of the New York Mets upper brass people there. When I go to Brooklyn to play against them, where my '86 World Championship ring is, and they kind of look at me funny, and I go, hey, wait a minute, I got you one of the best first basemen in baseball. And I said, this guy helped you win a World Series? I said, you couldn't have got him without me, so where's my ring? So, of course, they laugh it off, and we keep moving on, but I always make it a point to bring it up to them.
For the record, on June 15th, 1983, arguably the best trade the Mets ever made occurred. Keith Hernandez, here seen on the left, came to the New York Mets from St. Louis for Neil Allen on the right.
Along these baseball players, pitchers line, in 2001, we were blessed. And many times, Jamestown's been the beneficiary of some really unique opportunities. In 2001, there was expansion in the New York Penn League, and it brought the Brooklyn team back to baseball. Brooklyn came back to baseball, and I saw the schedule early on that Brooklyn was going to play its very first game since the Dodgers left in Jamestown. So I had the schedule. So I reached out, working with the Resource Center. We talked about the tie-dye shirts. And one of the preeminent Brooklyn Dodger pitchers was Carl Erskine, Oysk. And I knew that his son had autism and did a lot for the developmentally disabled. So we connected with Carl to come here to do an event with the Resource Center, but at the same time, be at the ballpark to throw out the opening pitch. Now, everybody from Brooklyn, New York City was here. This was a major league event. Brooklyn back in baseball in Jamestown. So one of the interesting things is I gave Carl Erskine, who was the nicest guy, a Jamestown Jammers hat. And he wore it the game. Now, shame on Brooklyn. Shame on Brooklyn. They should have thrown it away, put a Brooklyn hat on him because he's Erskine. But the whole time he wore it, he did the opening pitch, and it's terrific. Magic moment I'll always remember. What I'll remember the most, though, did Dave Walensone, did he come tonight? Dave was the general manager at the time. And Carl Erskine plays the harmonica. So we thought we would use Carl to play, take me out to the ball game during the seventh inning stretch, because that would be a great add-on. The rest you'll see is baseball history. So with that, Ed, if we could show that.
Carl Erskine from Anderson, Indiana, was admired by his teammates and adored by the fans. Erskine pitched 2 no-hitters, won 20 games in 1953, and set a record by striking out 14 Yankees in one game of the 1953 World Series. And he was blessed with the name that best suited the unique Brooklynese tongue. Oysk. Hey, Oysk, we're with you.
Behind the white shirt is Dave Walensone. Picking up the microphone. Seventh inning stretch. Brings out the cord. Put in. Hands it. Puts it in.
We have a new invention. The top of the 8th stretch. Everybody get up and join our friend Carl Erskine from the Brooklyn Dodgers as he plays Take Me Out to the Ball Game. What is that, buddy? Make it up.
Only in minor league
Still biz, right? All right, gentlemen.
Not only is it the first Dodger team back, it's the first time in the top of the 8th that the home crowd stood and sang and take me out.
That's right. I think as Greg said, only in minor league baseball.
What happened was when he put the pin in, He broke it. So they couldn't do the 7th inning stretch. So on quick, very fast notice, David and I, because I'm filming it, saying, let's just go upstairs and we'll do it in the 8th inning. And all those camera guys, there had to have been 20 people from New York City covering that. They were just all jammed into that press box just to capture the moment. The next story is 2011. This is a guy you may not remember unless you're a really hardcore baseball fan. He pitched with the Chicago Cubs and the Chicago White Sox. His name is Greg Hibbard. And Greg Hibbard was the pitching coach. And we interviewed him because he'd actually pitched a no-hitter. But that's not what he's going to talk about. He's going to talk about something near and dear. And sometimes you never know. As an interviewer, you'd like to know what the questions you ask and what the answers you want to get. This I didn't see coming. So with that, Ed?
Story with Harry, though. Me and my wife at the time walked into his restaurant, and he had a big round table there in the front corner of the restaurant. And I walk in, and I think I'd pitched that night, and you know, when you have a good game, you want to go out and eat dinner or whatever. And I walked in, and Harry saw me walk in, and you know, he was, "Hey, Hibby, come on over," you know. Have a seat, you know, and there was like 10 chairs at the table, you know. Well, Harry, I mean, you had to sit and talk for 2 hours before you even ordered food. One of the favorite calls that I ever heard him say was, "Hey, you know, Steve, 6 of my best friends just walked in, and they're all named Bud." But it was funny. The other thing that was awesome about Harry was once in a while the game wouldn't be on TV. And so he'd be on the radio. And I remember pitching the game, 8th inning, I leave the game, the reliever comes in, you know, and we're leading by 2 runs, and it's the bottom of the ninth, or top of the ninth, and I'm sitting in the clubhouse listening over the piped in sound, right? And I mean, here you go. And the pitch. There's a drive. It might be. Sandberg makes the catch. And I'm like, what? I mean, I'm like running outside to see if it's a homer, and there's Sandberg making the catch on the infield. Yeah. And it was like every ball that the guy would hit seemed like was going to be a homer. Yeah. And then he'd be like, you know, the second baseman makes the catch. I'm like, oh. It was nerve-wracking to listen to it on the radio.
You're the best. This was really fun. and you should go on stage with this Harry Carey.
You never know. The next one really defied logic, and you talk about a piece of serendipity. This was on ESPN, and there's an ambidextrous picture. Anybody kind of remember Pat Venditti? This was in 2008. Pat Venditti was in the New York Yankees minor league system, and ambidextrous, right, left, and if you saw his glove, it was six fingers. And so there was a piece on ESPN about the very first game. Venditti comes out in the 9th inning to do relief, and the very first game, it's not here. The game is not here. It's between Brooklyn and Staten Island. So it's at New York City, and it's captured on local video, and then ESPN grabs it, and it just explodes. It goes viral. So you'll see part of this here. But the real serendipity is a month later, Staten Island comes to Jamestown. So now Venditti's coming, and I'm all over this, man. Ambidextrous pitcher, got to interview this guy, do all that. But as would have it, this is the serendipitous part. The 2 umpires who were caught up in that crazy first game are here too. So I interviewed Pat Venditti, and then subsequently the 2 umpires. The sum total of this is a kind of a Ripley's, believe it or not. So Ed, if we could show this. Okay, just for this, what was the rule before you did that first thing here?
The rule was that I got to declare last, and we were each allowed to switch once. But now we're each allowed to switch once, but the hitter gets to declare last.
Does that affect you?
I mean, it was the same in college, so I just got to keep getting ahead of hitters, that's all.
Enriquez coming up as a lefty, and this is what I was hoping. Will he now switch the glove? He did already. He knew who was on deck. We might be able to see a pickoff move now. This is great.
I can just, you talked about somebody toying around with it, but I can just never remember anything like this.
Enriquez is a switch hitter, or he was messing with him. Now I'm confused.
So he comes up there as a right-hander. He's
switching. We got a little gamesmanship.
How about this? Did he change sides again?
He switched sides again. Now he's going.
I mean, this is possibly the last at-bat of the game, and it could be the most entertaining at-bat of the game. So let's take the viewers through this here. He came up as a right-hander.
But on deck he was a lefty.
And then he switched over. Well, it's okay if you're on deck as a lefty, but then when you get up there, if you switch, fine. But now that he started to go back and forth, righty-lefty, righty-lefty. And obviously, Venditti, after a while, thought, this isn't funny.
My name is Shaler Smith. I'm from Colleyville, Texas. This is my first year in the New York Pin League.
Tim Eastman from Detroit, or Flint, Michigan. That's my second year in professional baseball.
I wouldn't be shocked to find out that the umpire is saying, listen, I'm not aware of any rule, you know? It's a new one for everybody.
And I'd heard that, that there's an ambidextrous pitcher, but I guess I didn't realize at the time the significance of it. I was just kind of like, okay, all right, there's an ambidextrous pitcher, big deal, and I when he came up to pitch in the ninth inning, that was actually my first plate job in the New York Pin League.
His first game.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize that Venditti, I hadn't put the two and two together. Okay, Venditti's the switch pitcher, and so I just knew their closer was in, and the batter comes up 2 outs in the ninth inning and says.
And this is in Brooklyn, so it's the bottom of the ninth, right?
Bottom of the ninth inning, 2 outs. I'm sitting there thinking, well, I've got my first play job in the Pin League out and over with, out of the way. That thought literally ran through my head, and the batter comes up and goes, "What's he gonna do?" And I was like, "What?"
And it was 7-2.
Yeah.
So 7-2, they were losing. We got one more out,
right?
And then I'm sitting in the back. I'm sitting working the bases, and I see I didn't, because I saw him warming up right hand and left hand, but I didn't think anything about it. And then all of a sudden, I see the pinch hitter come in, and he's like,
"What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Oh no!" I was like, "Oh no!" And at the time, there was a rule that stated, in the rare occasion of an ambidextrous pitcher facing a switch hitter, they're each allowed one switch during the at-bat, but it doesn't state who, at that time, it didn't state who had to declare who was going to start, the pitcher or the hitter. The batter's sitting there, waiting to see what the pitcher's going to do. The pitcher's sitting there waiting to see what the batter's going to do, and so that had never really been clarified up until this point in baseball.
There's a right-hander.
Now he's switching his glove again.
0 for 3. Grounded to short twice and struck out.
Enriquez is asking the umpire, if I come up here and he had his glove on the other hand, doesn't he have to pitch like that? This is wiffle ball.
And can he turn around during the at-bat and have the pitcher change his glove during the at-bat?
And 4 fouls are now.
To talk to the umpires today of the game. We're covering today's game. And just the confusion that occurred on the field.
Going into it, I was told that I got to switch once, as did the hitter.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, I got the final say. So after I switched once, I thought that was going to be the end of it. But it wasn't. He kept switching back and forth. So I did the same, until the umpire put a stop to it and made us both go right-handed.
Breaking ball swung on and missed, and that is going to do it.
We called our boss after the game, our director, and told him about the situation. He said, we're waiting on a ruling from Major League Baseball. We're taking all these votes. We're voting on this. And Shane and I went to grab some sushi in Brooklyn, and we're coming back, and all of a sudden our phones light up like Christmas trees. And it's our buddies that umpire as well. You know, they're in the game and they're calling like, "You guys are on Sports Center." I said, "Shut up, get out of here," you know. And they said, "No," with the whole, because I called my buddy after the game about the ambidextrous pitcher, our buddy, and he said he told us what he had, and then they said, "You guys are on Sports Center." I'm like, come on. You know, so we're running downtown Brooklyn in our suits, running back to our hotel, and checked out the whole thing. It's pretty crazy.
Well, it is. It is. Do you ever thought that you'd ever get in a situation, especially your first game behind the plate?
Yeah, the odds of that are just 1 in a million. I mean, probably literally. And
for any umpire. After that happened, and after it hit Sports Center, what was your life like after that?
You know, my life hasn't changed that much. I'm still in short season A. I have so much work ahead of me, and I'm very fortunate for stuff like that to happen. And I'm very lucky. There's guys out here who work just as hard, if not harder, than I do. And for me to get that kind of attention, I've just been very fortunate. But you know, I'm not going to hang my hat on it. I have so much more to do.
I appreciate your time, as the umpires enjoyed talking about you today, because they had a little bit of celebrity which they didn't anticipate.
We'll send it to him. All right.
Pat Venditti. He subsequently made it into the major leagues. The first, I don't know if he was the first ambidextrous pitcher, but ultimately with the Oakland Athletics. That you can see on YouTube. The next few, I'm just going to do kind of rapid fire, are Major League Baseball players. I know I got my good friend Barry Deach here tonight, and a couple of Pittsburgh Pirates stories of people who came as coaches. And they, in turn, we had them extract some interesting one-of-a-kind stories. So, and this one is a 2007 interview, Ed, and it's with Turner Ward. Everybody knows Turner Ward and that ESPN highlight film of when you blew through the wall. Walk me through that.
2 homers in as many days, 5 on the season, and there's a drive toward right field. Turner Ward going over, makes a great diving catch, and we lost Turner Ward. He goes up and through the wall, apparently. Run scores on the sacrifice fly, and Ward appears hurt. And obviously, because as we said, we lost him.
It was
now, possibly he went through a door out there in right field, but literally he was gone through the cushion.
That's the kind of weekend it's been for the Bucks. He went back and really made a nice play as the ball was hit a long way. He turned around back, stayed with the play. It appeared he was going to bounce off the padding, but those panels are approximately 4x8 panelings.
Tell me about the play.
You know, I don't think there's any other special than any other play that I ever tried to make. I tried to rob every hitter of every ball ever played. I really felt like every game that I was out there, my goal was to give it everything I got every game. And that just happened to be, I must have hit a spot in the wall that was weaker than the other. I like to say, too, that Mike Piazza, who hit that ball, knocked me through the wall with a bullet that he hit. But, you know, that was my style of play. I really felt that, you know, that pitcher was on the mound. I was giving everything he had. That was my job, to make every play that I could. I wanted to rob guys. That was my ultimate goal as an outfielder, was to rob somebody of a base hit or hold them from an extra base.
So when that happened, though, I mean, literally, you hit a wall and it gives way?
Well, I used to say, I mean, way back in A-ball, I'd run through a wall to catch a ball. So now I can say I literally did, you know. And in that situation, it was a first and third situation. So when I went through the wall, you know, I made the catch, so I knew there was a guy on third base. I knew he was going to score, and my thought process was not to let the guy on first score. So when I was coming out of the wall, I'm thinking, should I kick it? Should I throw it left-handed? Should I, you know? So I just gave because I hurt my elbow on the play, and so I just kind of gave my best body throw with my right arm.
Turner Ward. The next one for your Pittsburgh Pirate fans, this is painful. This is really painful. It's a 2008 interview. It's a 2008 interview with Sid Bream, longstanding Pittsburgh Pirate player, but he had been traded to the Atlanta Braves, and towards the end of the Pirates' run of championships, certainly National League championships, they played the Braves, and this was the final game with the Braves. dealing with Sid Bream. Ed?
He played with the Dodgers from 1983 to 1985, the Pittsburgh Pirates from 1985 to 1990, the Atlanta Braves from 1991 until 1993, and in 1994 with the Houston Astros.
Set the scene for that game, because that's what they often see. Sid Bream, the slide.
Well, Doug Drabeck had just pitched a masterful ball game. I mean, the score was 2-0 going into the last inning, and seventh game of the National League Championship Series, and obviously we were tied 3-3 at that point in time. The winner goes on to the World Series, and Terry Pendleton comes up in the bottom of the ninth inning and doubles down the right field line. David Justice comes up after that and hits a ground ball to Jose Chico Lind that only made 6 errors all year long, and booted a little backhand to him. And so we had first and third at that point in time. And Ronnie Gann hits a fly ball for an out, but scores a run. So we have a guy on first base with scores 2-1. I come up. Drabeck walks me in 4 straight pitches. So we have, first and second with 1 out. He knew the game was over with at that point. No, just kidding. But they bring in Stan.
It was 2-0 at that point.
2-1. 2-1 because, they scored a sacrifice fly.
Right.
And at that point in time, they bring in Stan Belinda, and he walks Damon Berryhill on a controversial 3rd strike call. And Brian Hunter, so I'm at second base. There's 1 out. Bases are loaded. Brian Hunter comes up as a pinch hitter. Broken back, little pop fly behind second base, which makes 2 outs. And here comes Francisco Cabrera up to the plate with 2 outs and takes a high outside fastball that was actually off the plate and pulled a frozen rope between third base and shortstop. I've often wondered quite a bit, why in the world did Bobby Lake leave me out there to run in that situation when he could have used a pitcher because obviously, I didn't run the greatest with my knee surgeries and things, but fortunately for me, he did, and the great thing for me was there were 2 outs. I didn't have to worry about where the ball was hit. I knew Stan Belinda wasn't going to be concerned about me at second base, so I got an extra step or 2 off of the base. At the crack, I was able to take off, and fortunately for me, Barry Bonds threw the ball up the line just enough that Mike couldn't get there and put the tag on me.
And now the Braves season hangs in the balance as Francisco Cabrera comes to the plate to bat for the pitcher. He appeared in only 12 games this year for the Braves. He hacked at the 2-0, now the 2-1. Line drive to the base hit. Just as the score, the tying run. Bream to the plate. And he is safe. Safe at the plate. The Braves go to the World Series.
Safe or off?
The umpire said safe, and so we'll just say safe.
One of the benefits of, again, baseball in Dietrich Park, you never know who's going to show up. In 2002, we were affiliated with the Florida Marlins, and they set up over a period of a 1-week period, batting coaches, instructors to tour the Marlins teams, and we had the benefit of Andre Dawson, who subsequently became a Hall of Famer, already Hall of Famer Tony Perez, and then we had Tim Raines, who subsequently became a Hall of Famer. So within a 1-week period, 3 guys showed up, and all 3 didn't have a chance. I interviewed them, so that was really fun for me. But Danny Lanetta may be watching us at some point, and he said very nice things about me. I asked Tim Raines, who played with the Montreal Expos for many, many years, and Dan Lanetta was the traveling secretary for the Montreal Expos, about who was favorite. You'll see this. We'll just see it. Let's show it. Tim Raines.
A new era in stolen bases was underway. Montreal's Tim Raines would set a record by stealing 70 or more bases 6 straight seasons. His first 6 in the big league.
Who's your favorite traveling secretary of all time?
Dan Lanetta. I've been playing for quite a while. Got into the hours, and we were sure. As a matter of fact, a few guys on
the team was afraid to fly on that same plane. They got off the plane and went and flew with another airline. Got on another plane, but myself, you know, just wasn't really much to do on the plane, and we wasn't real sure when we were going to leave. So I just kind of started playing around, and I had never really put on a life jacket, and I caught myself putting on a jacket and really didn't know how to use it, but I kind of pulled the plug and the jacket kind of blew up and kind of stuck to my neck. And I had no clue of how to get it off, and it was so tight that it was almost choking me. And but it was just a joke that turned out to be a problem with one of the stewardesses. They were saying that, you know, you can't play around with these life jackets, you know, and they kind of got upset with me about doing it. I kind of laughed about it, and they was even talking about turning me into the FIA or something like that. But it was a weird day, and luckily I didn't kill myself messing around with that life jacket. But it was quite a comic act for the players anyway.
The next one is the setup. I was in Detroit. My daughter was the assistant general counsel for the Detroit Tigers, and it was like Father's Day. So she took me to the game in Detroit, and it was a rain delay. So we're bored. We go to our office at the stadium, and there in the lounge was one of the preeminent Detroit Tiger players from the 1968 World Series team, Gates Brown, pinch hitter extraordinaire. And so he's there, I'm there, and guess what? I happen to have my camera. So he tells a story which you got to see it to believe it. Ed?
One of the great stories you tell, I'm going to hand this to you as a prop.
I'm going to eat it too.
You're going to eat it too. This is yours. You must tell me the hot dog story.
Well, this one I can't live down. You know, this particular game, me and Norm Case wasn't playing this day, and me and him was sitting on the end of the bench. Sent the bad boy up to get us a couple of hot dogs and watching the game. Now, I know Mayo never called on me till the 7th, 8th, or 9th. And this is about the 5th or 6th inning.
What year was this? Do you remember?
68.
68
1968. It's a good year. But anyway, all of a sudden he stopped the game and said, Gates, get your bat and go hit for Euler or whoever. And he kept kind of staring my way, so I turned my back on him. I had 2 hot dogs. And I stuck them in my shirt. Buttoned my shirt up. Got a couple of bats and loosened up. Out of all the time, I didn't care if I'd strike out or pop up or something. I hit one up the slot, right center, and I had to go in the second head first. And you can imagine that white uniform. I had ketchup and mustard and all over me, you know. And the bench, they roared with laughter, you know. They thought it was funny, but Mayo didn't. Matter of fact, he fined me $100, you know. I said, Mayo, I just drove in the run, you know. He says, well, Gates, the only reason I'm not charging you more is you're not making nothing now, so to add insult to injury, you know. But that was a kind of, you know, that was a good year, you know. Yeah. Can't live that one down.
Too good. And so I'm not sure what the next one is, Ed. Is it the 7th inning? Or we could just show it. Yeah, okay. Now, we're at 7th inning stretch time, and I did a little backstory before this starts. This was during 1995. It's a Chautauqua institution. I was running around working on the book, which Mike had us started on, but it was also the year of which there was a baseball strike. So I'm gathering up stories, and I convinced the bell tower guy to take me out to the ball game. I convinced a lot of people, like the barber shoppers, to sing during their rehearsal, take me out to the ball game. I'm just gathering B-roll. So one of the B-roll things for this is during the afternoon, they practiced for the evening performance, and there was this professional organist up there. So I just simply walked on the stage. The guy's practicing. I just politely asked him, "Have you ever done Take Me Out to the Ball Game?" So this is a classical organist, and you'll see what happens. Chautauqua Amphitheater. For those folks that's from Chautauqua and the Grapevine, Turner, that was for you. Sometimes they're not the stories, you don't know, again, where it's coming from, and sometimes it's not all humorous, so I just thought I'd drop one in, which is poignant under the category. This is an interview with Wilson Alvarez. Wilson Alvarez was a significant major league player for the Chicago White Sox and a few other teams, and he pitched a no-hitter. So I thought I'd share this particular story because it has quite an interesting backstory from his perspective.
This is a gift from God they gave to me because a year earlier, August 11th, 1990, my wife lost a baby. It was a boy. He died that day, August 11, 1990. Mm-hmm. So August 11, 1991, I threw the no-hitter. That's why if you see the highlights, I don't even jump. The baby was in my mind. Sure. Right after the game. I got the last out, and I just looked home and said, "Thank you, God, for this." And that was it. After that, I felt all the guys all over me.
Yeah.
It was great. It was real good.
As you were going into that last inning, was there a sense of nervousness or was there a calm?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't even notice I was throwing no hit until the 7th inning when Lance Johnson on center field dived for the ball. Yep. He dove from the ball like right center field. When he catch the ball and left his glove, that's where the scoreboard was, right there. So when he left his glove, I was like, man, they don't have any hits yet. That's when my heart started pumping real fast. Right. And so I finished the inning and I sit down and I look at the scoreboard again. I said, they got no hits. I was like, my God, what's going on here? Right. And that's when I started getting a little nervous, and I just went, don't look over there no more. I just look down, watch the game, and that's it, and just let it. And we went to the 8th, and I went back to the dugout. I was like, come on, just relax. Don't look at it. Don't get nervous. Just keep doing what you're doing right now, and it happens.
Yeah. Did the players talk to you at all, or did they stay away from you?
No, they stay away from me the whole time.
Yeah. I was curious about that, whether
No, there's always that way.
Yeah.
If you throw a no-hitter, everybody start just getting even farther and farther, and that's the way it goes. Went out there and think about, the baby and worry about is this gonna happen like I did in Texas? I can't get nobody out.
Right.
I was worrying about that stuff. I was thinking about like I said, the baby again, and I don't even look at the game, like what it's supposed to do. I just go out there and do the best I can.
Were they able to hear the no-hitter on radio, or did you?
No, they watch it on TV.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Oh, how exciting!
Televised, yeah. They used to do it like one game a week, every Sunday.
Right.
And they were televised, and no matter what, if I was pitching or not. And I got lucky. Well, they got lucky. That was it. I was pitching that day.
Oh, how exciting!
It was just, it happens,
Yeah.
Like I said before, God gave me that gift.
Amazing in the fact that this is one of the first games he pitched with the White Sox. Prior to that time, he pitched with Detroit or Texas, and he didn't get through one inning. And then he plays on the Saturday game. His parents, who are they're in the Caribbean, they can only watch a game. And it just so happens he's pitching, and it just so happens he throws a no-hitter on the first anniversary of the passing of his son. So it just really, really grabbed me. The next few are sort of Jamestown, New York specific. And they deal with some interesting Major League ball players. But before we do that, we have a 1995 interview dealing with a game at Jamestown. It features Bob Payne. Bob Payne, many of you will remember. He was the scoreboard keeper for many years. We knew him best in the press box, but in a prior life, he was the scoreboard keeper when they actually were out in the scoreboard. If you can remember, for those really old timers, the Moose scoreboard where they drop in the actual outs of every inning. So with that, Bob Payne, who was quite a storyteller.
Story several times, and you were intimately involved in an unusual thing that happened in the scoreboard down at the ballpark. What happened?
Well, this was back in 1943, during the war. Gordy Phillips, late Gordy Phillips, and myself were hired as kids to operate the scoreboard. And that was when it was out in center field, and we had no communications with the press box or anything. It was all by observation from out there. The umpires' hands and so forth were balls and strikes and outs. And they were on boxes there. As you turned, strike 1, 2, 3, ball 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. And this was a series, as I remember, with Batavia. And towards the end of the season, and the two teams were locked up pretty tight, back and forth. If I remember right, they had a playoff at the end of the season or something like that. They were tight all the way through the season, and this was a real tight ball game, and like 1-1 or something like that, and gone into extra innings. And there was a ball hit into right center field by the Jamestown batter, and the center fielder was running towards right, and the right fielder was running towards center. Like I say, it was right in the gap. Both of them running full speed and towards the ball. I think probably the way it looked to me is if either one of them could have probably caught it. And I don't know, the thought came to me right at the moment because I was a kid. I didn't want to spend all night out there. I wanted to get this ball game over with. So I stuck my head around the end of the scoreboard and hollered, I got it, and both of them pulled up and stopped, and the ball dropped between them and rolled to the wall for an extra base hit. So after the play, the outfielder threw the ball in. I think the guy got a triple out of it, but that did break up the ball game, and the center fielder was operated right in front of the scoreboard most of the time. I turned around and he said, "You little so-and-so, I'll get you after the ball game." Well, in those days we got paid after every ball game. And Gordy or I, neither one of us went in to get paid that night. We went over the fence and out through the parking lot and home.
It made a difference in the game.
Oh yes, yeah, they scored like I said, it was an extra inning, and I think the batter got a triple out of it, and they got him in to win the ball.
Bob Payne, an original. In 1998, the Pittsburgh Pirates had a caravan, and they came to Warren, Pennsylvania. And with that, they brought a couple of old-time Major League pitchers and players. And one of them was the late 1950s, early 1960 relief pitcher extraordinaire, Elroy Face. And Elroy Face played in the New York Penn League. And he had a fond memory of Jamestown. He didn't play for Jamestown, but he had a fond memory of playing in Jamestown. So, next one, please.
You shouldn't live in the past. It's dangerous. But to visit it is just a wonderful experience.
To still more unforgettable pitching that season as reliever Elroy Face went 18-1 out of the bullpen. Face made the forkball famous, and for 14 years, he was the buck stopper.
Started baseball in Bradford, Pennsylvania.
Back in 1949. I was there in 49 and 50.
And for the 2 years, you were starting pitcher, right?
I was a starting pitcher in my whole minor league career.
Vulcan's season ended with a 3-game playoff between Jamestown and Bradford. For Bradford won the final playoff game 5-4, with Danny Carnevale scoring the winning run in the 9th inning. And the winning pitcher, of course, Elroy Face.
Oh yeah, I remember one time we had to carry baseball bats to our dugout, to our clubhouse, because the fans, we beat the Jamestown team, and the fans were mad about it. The umpire made a call, and they thought it was against their team, and we actually took baseball bats from the dugout and walked through the crowd to the clubhouse.
For a little protection, huh?
Yeah, in case.
Man is the Jamestown Club. And we used to almost had a fist fight. Remember that too, 1949. God.
I'm telling you, baby, I'm through with you just because.
Another Pittsburgh Pirate who actually played here with the Jamestown Pirates, Randy, right? They were the Jamestown Pirates in 1957. And Don Clendenin. Don Clendenin was the first baseman. This team of the Pirates lasted all of a half of a season. But Don Clendenin came here to Jamestown. He was one of those, again, Ripley, believe it or not, he was pitching one of the stores that was opening up at the mall. And it lasted all of about 30 seconds. But Don Clendenin was there, so he was coming in to sign autographs, and that seemed to be a good time to spend an hour and a half talking baseball. But he remembers Jamestown, and this is what he remembers.
Then, in the bottom of the 6th inning, Cleon Jones of the Mets alleged he had been hit in the foot by pitcher Dave McNally. The umpire hadn't seen it. Hodges called for the ball and pointed to a minute speck of shoe polish. Jones went to first. Next up was Don Clendenin. His home run into the left field stand scored Jones and brought the Mets to within 1 run.
2-1 pitch, fly ball, deep left field. Jones is back to the fence.
Miracle Mets had won the World Series 4 games to 1.
My first assignment was to the New York Penn League, the Pony League, in Jamestown, New York. And that was my first experience into professional baseball.
You hit your first professional home run in Jamestown, New York.
Thank you.
Do you remember it?
No, I don't. What I do remember is that there were short road trips, and the stands here were always packed, and Jamestown fans were just outstanding. They really supported the team until there was a city ordinance passed restricting no sales of any alcoholic beverages like beer at the stadium. And slowly but surely, fan participation dwindled down to just the players' passes. and the team folded, and I was sent then to the rookie league. I didn't see how they could be in financial difficulty. I could understand that after they passed the ordinance and the fan participation ceased. I mean, they just cut it off. And I think, if I remember, it was a predominantly Swedish town, and they were really supporting their baseball club at that time.
Clearly wanted their beer. So 1957, that's Don Clendenin. Another person who has a distinct Jamestown memory for probably all the wrong reasons. I had a chance to interview this person as part of an old-timers game that Mike Bellani and the rich people brought in the Cracker Jack folks. And so they had a night before where they had a dinner. So Mike invited me to go up, and I thought, as part of the book, I would interview a number of these celebrities who had played in the New York Penn League. So this is one of them. This is for the Rich Dixons of the world. This is Tug McGraw, New York Mets extraordinaire, and also his remembrances of playing in Jamestown.
The cake was baked perfectly by a group of men who had finally realized their potential as a team. And the sweet icing was supplied by tireless Tug McGraw, whose final pitch to Kansas City's Willie Wilson will be remembered forever as the greatest moment.
Beat at Veterans Stadium, but Tugger needs one more. One more out. Willie Wilson standing in, bases loaded.
1-2 pitch. My name came from my mother right after I was born. My mother started calling me her little Tugger. I guess when I was hungry.
Yeah.
You can figure that one out. There was a college there for nurses.
Yes.
Yes, I remember that. But I'm not going to elaborate. Yeah, I remember the college for the nurses in Jamestown. They were big baseball fans.
Yeah.
And we always had a lot of respect for nurses too. So it was a natural.
One of the many benefits of attending baseball games at Dietrich Park is you never know who you're likely to meet at the game.
Rick Hines, Rick, congratulations. You won yourself a certificate for high quality Brazil gasoline.
One thing that has never changed and never will change is what goes on between the lines and in the clubhouse. The dynamics of the relationships and the promotion circumstance and everyone's story, that will never change.
In Jamestown, New York.
A very classic small town 1940s ballpark. Obviously, these aren't the original seats, I don't think. Well kept up, a beautiful night. It was a beautiful night for baseball. If I could some year get it off and get the time, I would spend an entire summer and I'd go to every venue in minor league baseball.
Considering Joe Jackson for the Hall of Fame?
That's a sticky wicket. You read conflicting accounts of what actually happened, and he hit 375, and did he do anything bad? Did he just not report the bribe? I'd like to believe that Joe Jackson was a ill-educated, misled rube who maybe took the money and then knew he couldn't throw the baseball games and should be forgiven for who he was and what he was. And to answer your next question, the answer is no, never, until he says I did it, and I'll drive Pete Rose right to the airport and put him in. People don't understand why Pete Rose was suspended. He was suspended for very good reasons. He's banned for life for a very good reason, and he has proven he likes gambling more than baseball. It's that simple.
The All-Star game,
it was hard not to be misty. It was one of those things that had they scripted it, they couldn't have. It never would have worked.
Yeah.
It was totally spontaneous. It was a wonderful moment, and at that moment when it was over, the PA announcer could have said, "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Drive home safely," because there was no need for a ball game.
Yeah.
For 22 years, he wore the uniform of the United States Marines for 4.5 more. He owned left field at this very ballpark. He was the last man to hit 400 in a season, and he did it 58 years ago. He hit 521 home runs, including one on his last at-bat. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the greatest hitter that ever lived, number 9, Hall of Famer, baseball legend, Ted Williams.
Try as hard as we can and hope that this moment translates on television. The feelings that we're getting here at Fenway Park at this 70th Midsummer Classic.
This way, look around the polls, look out there, think about what's going on here in the last 58 years. This is the way minor league baseball should be.
Has Welland's Own treated you well?
Yes, I was taken care of. We were treated like royalty. It was very kind.
That's terrific.
That's Bob Ryan, who, for those who watched ESPN a lot, there's a couple I wanted, this is the only one that's not baseball related, but it's too funny for words. Now, Van Miller is from Dunkirk, New York. Van Miller, Lakeshore Savings and Loan, sponsors, and still does, the Van Miller Golf Tournament. And I would go up because some of the old football players who would show up there to do interviews, and it was fun. One year, one of the guests was Paul McGuire. For those that remember, Paul McGuire played on the 1964-65 AFL Football Championship Buffalo Bills, and of course was well known as a broadcaster. So he's a funny guy. The whole interview is kind of, but this is a short vignette, and I think just gives you a sense of Paul McGuire. So, Ed.
First of all, I love Van. Everybody did. But Van, you've never bought a drink. You've walked in, you took sandwiches off the plane, you put them in your briefcase to go home, but you never bought a drink. You had a drink, but you never bought a drink. And I asked you today, can you buy the guys a drink? And you said, again, I forgot my wallet. But it's true. I just found something out about 3 months ago. It's really kind of neat. For me, it's kind of neat. That and $3 downstairs, I can get another Budweiser. I'm the only guy in history that won 3 championship games in a row. Really? 63 Chargers, 64 5 Bills. We had a guy who came to Buffalo by the name of Ramey Prudhomme from LSU. Not many people knew him. This guy was different. He came into the locker room one day with an owl. I'm talking about grown men that weigh 300 pounds. Scared the crap out of everybody in the locker room. Had it in his locker. Come on, how good is that? And it didn't bother him, and the owl sat there.
You were involved in one of the most spectacular plays in Bills history in the 1965 AFL Championship game against the Chargers. Butch Bird took a John Hadle punt and with outstanding blocking took it 74 yards for a touchdown. The last two blocks were by McGuire, crushing two Chargers.
I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm on the punt return team. Butch Bird caught the ball, and he's coming upfield, and I don't even know he's behind me because I'm looking to block because you can hear the crowd. You know that it isn't over with yet. And John Hadle was the punter. Dave Kasurik was the upback, and they were both together. And I hit either Dave into John or John into Dave, and they both went down. I was going full speed this way, and they were kind of catching. And all I can hear was one of them on the ground, "You son of a bitch." And we laid there and laughed. We did. All three of us laid there and laughed because it was a touchdown and it was, part of the game. If I was in a bowling alley, I'd have got 10.
Time, and we'll make sure you get another putt here.
That's it. Now we're talking.
The last one, and this is the conclusion. We could not have an event like tonight without, first of all the fans. And this is one where the fans got suckered in big time, and we were privileged to have interviewed several of the players to what I think is perhaps the best known event ever at Dietrich Park, and that happened August 6th, 1990. And subsequently, we had at the ballpark, a year ago, we interviewed Peter Funt. It's not part of this, but he was at the ballpark and regaled us with some stories. That's for another time. So let's conclude with this very funny vignette, which if you haven't seen it, I don't know where you've been. But this is a compilation of a lot of people talking about a crazy stunt that occurred and was aired on CBS, which subsequently is one of the top 10 that was ever shown, according to Peter Funt. So, Candid Camera, 1990.
1990, when Peter Funt staged his Candid Camera bit at College Stadium. What a day that was. The idea was vintage Alan Funt, and it was played out in our little old Jamestown, New York. And here's the story from those who were participants.
We're in Jamestown, New York, home of the Jamestown Expos. And the Expos field is going to be the setting later tonight for one of the most unusual Candid Camera sequences we've ever tried.
Because we was fighting for a playoff spot with Erie. So Tom O'Reilly says, I got a great idea. I got a call from Candid Camera. This 10 o'clock in the morning. He said, they want to come over here. And I said, what in the hell would they want to come to Jamestown, New York? He said, well, they want to do something on minor league baseball. And I said, they got some teams, they got some clubs. The Mets have got a club. I think the Mets then were at in the fall. I don't know exactly what town it was. He said, I don't know, but they want to come here and do it. And I said, well, Tom, I'll tell you, you better check with the front office. I said, who knows? So anyway, he says, I'll check. He calls back and said, I said, I got no problem with it. He calls back and said, Montreal said it's fine. So when Peter's telling me what they're going to do, I'm thinking, that ain't going to go. But, it's not going to. It's going to be. So he told Juan Lopez was managing Niagara Falls, and we were in the race in with Erie. We was going right down to the thing where, and I thought, this is going to screw everything up. I mean, we were like a half a game back, and we had a doubleheader. This was in between games of a doubleheader. And nobody noticed that the two umpires did the first game. When he come out, nobody noticed the difference. I'm going to do it. He says, I don't. He said, that's going to make Baxter mad. And so only Hargis knew it, the catcher. I knew it, and Juan Lopez was managing Niagara Falls. Nobody else knew it.
I came in for the first game and walked into the press box. And the next box to us was all this TV equipment.
Expos starting pitcher, a fellow named Bob Baxter. Now, what Baxter doesn't know is that his catcher is working tonight for the Candid Camera. and I'm going to pose as the home plate umpire. Now, whenever Baxter tries to throw a pitch, his catcher is going to confuse him with hand signals he's never seen before. In a few hours, there'll be several thousand people here, and of course, they won't know what's going on either.
Now game time is approaching and the crowd files in. Out on the field, pitcher Bob Baxter is taking his warm-ups with catcher Dan Hargis. I'm behind the plate. One other thing. Up in the press box, the game is being broadcast live on local radio station WJTN. Now, the two fellas doing the play-by-play have no idea about the candid camera stunt that will soon occur, and we'll listen in occasionally to their report.
The best part of the whole thing was Pete and Skip on the radio.
Leads off against left-hander Rob Baxter, and we're set. Now we got time called, and there's confusion between the pitcher and the catcher, so let's get together.
How can you get messed up on the first signal of the ball
One foul, three, slider, little change. All right, cool.
It's ridiculous. I mean, this is the 48th game of the season, fans. If you don't have your signal straight by this time, I mean, you open up with a fastball. 9 times out of 10.
Time! What's going on here, Ted? Huh?
He put down a number there.
Just a minute. What is going on out
here? Not putting down numbers, he's putting down, I know what it is.
How long you two guys play together?
You know the signals, let's go. We've never done that before.
What?
Nice signals? Come on now.
Fellas, we've been out here 5 minutes. We haven't thrown a pitch yet.
We'll put down the numbers. I don't know what you did. You did. You just missed it. I don't know what that is, Dan. That's not like it's on numbers with the fingers. I did.
You think you can do this now? We're going to get your manager out here and get you out of this game, fella.
I don't know what these are, Dan. Make sure you keep an eye on me now. I'm watching you.
We haven't started the ball game yet. I tell you, maybe it's time for Baxter to get himself a set of glasses. They ought to take him to the optometrist tomorrow. Get him examined. As Hargis, evidently not the culprit, he doesn't seem to believe it either for some reason.
I don't understand what's going on here. Absolutely don't understand. Looks like Baxter is ready. He's looking in, and he's still nodding no. Still nodding no, and I don't know what he's doing. He's still nodding no. As if he can't see or something. His time is gone.
Now the home plate umpire is going to go over and talk to management, I believe, or they're going to put him on base.
It's good news for the refreshment stand. You folks that's down there in the refreshment area, stay in line. We haven't started the ball game yet.
I don't have all night to play this game.
Well, he's pitched since you were a little league? He's not giving you numbers. Who hasn't? Danny's always going like this, like this, like this.
He's what?
He's not putting down numbers.
No, wait, hey, you get back behind the plate.
Our team didn't know what the hell was going on.
You're not giving any numbers? What you doing? You told him to give me numbers, I'll throw it.
And what's he giving you?
He's giving me this and this and this.
What does that mean?
No idea.
What? You don't know what it means? Just a minute, I'll run you out of here. What does it mean? What does this mean?
No idea. I have no idea.
Are you going to throw a pitch tonight, or are we going to stand here and talk about it?
What's on a one? I'll throw a fastball.
Are you going to play ball?
Of course I am.
Yeah, I'm going to give you one more chance to have this fella play ball. Otherwise, we're going to run him out of here.
I don't have any more pitches.
Well, we're going to forfeit. All right, let's go. Let's go.
Okay, we're still waiting the first pitch. We're getting time called again. And now the umpire again going out to talk to the pitcher. And he pointed, he's out of there. He threw Baxter out of the ballgame.
Throw him out of the game. Look at Baxter. He just dropped the ball and walked off.
He threw Baxter out of the ballgame. One of the most unbelievable things in the history of professional baseball we're seeing right here.
My name's Peter Fun. And I do the candid camera show, Bob.
We just caught you on candid camera. Now, there's the camera up there taking your picture. And you are one of the nicest guys we've ever caught on candid camera, although you're shaking like a leaf.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like you all to smile because you and the Expos are on candid camera.
Candid camera, folks, and we've all been taken.
Well, I guess we have.
And
We
I'm in
sucked
it.
right into it. Believe me, they did a great job.
You remember that, all, Pete?
Oh, yes. Very fortunate that Skip didn't come out with one of his famous "goddammits." He went very close. He gets upset quickly. There would be something like that. No doubt about it. It was well done. No, they handled it well. I felt sorry for the pitcher. He was so befuddled out there.
The only thing that came into my mind is that Hargis was sick. I'm doing as best I can. I have no idea what's going on, but eventually it'll work itself out.
What about when the coach came out and was pretty angry with you?
He was, but I was out of things to say at that point. I couldn't think of anything else to say. I couldn't defend myself anymore. I mean, when you're out in the field, the only people who know what's going on are you and the catcher. Nobody else can see those signals. So it was my word against Dan's, and at the time I guess I was losing, but I had nothing else to say. He came out, and I still had no idea what was going on, although I knew, or I thought I was doing everything right. And he came out and finally took his mask off, and it still took 3-4 seconds to sink in that this was somebody from TV.
And I do the candid camera show, Bob.
We just caught you on candid camera. Now, there's the camera up there taking your picture. And you are one of the nicest guys we've ever caught on candid camera, although you're shaking like a leaf.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like you all to smile because you and the Expos are on candid camera.
Candid camera, folks, and we've all been taken.
Well, I guess we have.
And
We
I'm in
sucked
it.
right into it. Believe me, they did a great job.
What a postscript on that. Subsequently, Peter Funt did come here. He was at the Reg Linnae. He talked about this, showed this piece, and then we had him at the ballpark. There's a much longer version, which includes interviews
Before we get
with,
started,
Sean O'Reilly,
whatever.
and also with Peter Funt, and you saw the announcer. It's in a moment in time. It really is a moment in time. And now I guess I'd like to have, not going to take any questions, except there is one last question for the guy, and it's the only question, and I defer to Mike Bellani.
Well, how about a round of applause for this great... Greg, this was tremendous, and I'm glad that we did it finally after all these years, and you have many more of these videos, so maybe we could have a second annual, but go back to the Old Timers game when we had it at Pilot Field the second year that the ballpark was open, and we were able to snag the Cracker Jack Old Timers game here to Buffalo, and your memory of that game with Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah, there was, again, another one of those opportunities that I had to pull the Phillips Lytle partner trick and try to get a press pass. Now, this is like going, for all of us who are baseball fans, it's like a kid in a candy store. All the baseball cards you ever collected in life, they're all there live in front of you at at the park. And I go out there, I got my camera, I got my video camera going, I got my still camera, I got everything going 10 miles, just going crazy, because they're there. And even getting some autographs, which I must tell you, they tell you in very big, bold headlines, you cannot get autographs if you have a media pass. My attitude is, possession is 90% of those. So the worst they can do is throw you out after you get what you got. So with that in mind, I'm out there taking pictures, and they had it a little bit roped off, so you couldn't go on the field. So I'm there taking pictures, but my camera jammed. I'm there, nothing was happening. And it was one of those old move forward. And so I had to go back into the bench. I'm by myself. Everybody is out there taking pictures but me, and I'm really mad. So I'm there, I'm on the bench trying to fix it, finally get it fixed, and right next to me, coming from the clubhouse, walks out, he looks, and it's Joe DiMaggio. It's Joe DiMaggio, the Joe DiMaggio. It's me sitting here, there's the runway, DiMaggio walks right in front of me, looks out, says nothing, looks around, and I assume he assumed that he was there too early. And so I immediately go into the camera. My camera bag is right there, grabbing around like crazy to get a baseball, because this is a chance of a lifetime. So I grab, there's a ball, it's blank. I find scoot around for a pen. I go, Mr. DiMaggio, would you mind, again, violating every law you could do? And he looks at me with that kind of not so happy look, but I got him. It's only the two of us in the dugout. So he signs the ball. I get the ball, I put it in my bag. Just before security comes down and says, Mr. DiMaggio, you're out too early, he goes back and disappears. And he really doesn't show up until right before the introductions, and then waves, doffs his hat, and then leaves. That was his thing. So it was a dumb experience for me, not necessarily funny, but certainly timing was incredible, because if I hadn't had a camera jam and sitting there mad at myself, I would not have had a chance to get the autograph of Joe DiMaggio, and that would not have happened but for Mike Bellani. So to Mike Bellani, I say thank you.
Well, Greg, and the interesting part with Joe DiMaggio is that when we got that old timers game, it's almost like a concert. They give you a list of, what kind of M&Ms they want in the room and all that. And one of the rules on there was how you deal with Joe DiMaggio, that we had to have a separate car and a person that would bring him there. He certainly didn't play, but he was introduced out, and the PA announcer had a full script of reading everything about Joe DiMaggio's life. It was legend. I mean, he was a legend. And he came out and tipped his hat, and then he walked back, as Greg said, to the clubhouse, would go in, took the uniform off, and then I was assigned to walk him out to the car that would then take him back to the Hyatt, where we had a post-game party. Well, we leave and we get off as we're going up the elevator, he said, "You don't stop for anybody." And people, "Hey, Mr. DiMaggio." And he's right on and he's like, "Don't stop," mumbling. And sure enough, we got him right to the gate, into the car, and he was off. And I think you were probably the only one in that ballpark to get that autograph. But that's Greg Peterson. So how about, Greg, thank you so much. This was wonderful. As we adjourn this evening, Christian mentioned that in the hallway there's a lot of tarp skunk paraphernalia for sale. Randy has a book that Greg said there's only a few copies left. There's season tickets that you could sign up for, and also grab a magnet schedule. But Greg, thank you very much for the invitation. It's always great to be back, and now that I have the schedule, I'll be circling some dates and certainly be back to cheer on the Tarp Skunks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I appreciate it.